Hello, and welcome to Teaching My Cat to Read, the very serious book review podcast. I'm Eli.
I'm Em.
And I'm Lottie. And this week we're discussing everything about The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers.
I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about this, you guys. It's one of my favourite books of all time, and I'm so thrilled that we get to do it for the podcast.
That's because you have exquisite taste.
It's so good.
This, oh my god. So I've had, like, a rough couple months, and this book was exactly what I needed. Like, holy
it's so
it
good
was so lovely. It's just like a book where, like, oh, people are good, actually. Like, I love everyone in this book, even the ones who are kind of dicks.
It's a warm hug in sci-fi form, and it makes me very, very happy.
Yeah, it's probably like, I mean, I will preface this by saying I think I've read about 2 sci-fi books series in my life, one of which is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So
I mean, that's the best one. Like,
I really, really enjoyed this book. I didn't know what I was expecting to go into it, and I just, loved it. Em, do you want to give like a brief overview of kind of setting, plot?
Yeah, I can do. I was going to say as well, with the sci-fi thing, that this is the book that single-handedly got me back into sci-fi. Because I read a lot of it because my dad was really into it. And then I got disenchanted because, like, a lot of it is very, like, the classic stuff is all very male and very miserable and very straight and just a bunch of things that I don't enjoy.
And it's not very, like, it's weird to say this about a book that has characters that are a lot of different species, but it's not very humanist, like old sci-fi. This book is so, like, Becky Chambers clearly loves people.
Yes.
Which just makes it such a breath of fresh air to read after reading a bunch of books where, like, all the characters are unlikable or like, which is so often a thing in sci-fi because it's like they're trying to be gritty.
They're like, oh, it's real, the real, you know, people are hell and then you die or whatever the it is. And it's like, no,
exactly.
Hell
is empty and all the demons are here and life's a bitch and then you drown or whatever. Yeah.
Nasty, brutish and short. And it's like, no, actually.
Whereas this book is like, sometimes things are hard, but on the whole, people exist and that's good, actually. And we're all just trying to, like, do our best.
I tell you what, it's very people are all we've got. It's very that one line from Fleabag that lives rent-free in everybody's head is that people are all we've got. Anyway, I was going to give a brief summary and I completely forgot to do that. So I will get on that. Okay, so premise. We have, it's several centuries in the future. There is a galactic federation a la Star Trek, except that nobody gives a shit about humans. It's all alien all the way, and the humans are kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy going, God, I wish we were as cool as them. The faster-than-light travel fix is that you create these things called gates, and then a ship, like, tunnels through subspace between the gates, and that, like, creates a little time-space fold road type shit, so you can get across the galaxy without having to, like, build generation ships or what the hell ever.
Safe artificial wormholes.
Yes, essentially. So this book follows the crew of a ship whose job it is to make those tunnels. Road crew, space road crew, baby. And they get the big new job. A new scary species has joined this Galactic Federation. I think it's called the Galactic Commons, is that right?
Yeah, GC.
Because it keeps getting abbreviated to GC, which confuses my brain because this book was published in 2014.
It's just like group chat. They're in the alien group chat.
No. They're the alien gender criticals.
Oh no, that's so much worse.
But because this book was published in 2014, it was before that current wave of, like, awful...
Gross.
Current events. Anyway.
Yes. So there's a new species that have joined the thing, and it's one of those things where, like, they've been joined in basically because they have access to a huge ton of natural resource that's used to fuel spaceships.
Yeah, they're sitting on space lithium, basically.
But they haven't actually, like, met any of the, like, I guess sapientarian criteria for, like, not being a So it's like, it's all a bit like, we don't really understand these people, we don't know them very well,
but we just leave them over there with their little lithium mine and just, like, don't touch them with a barge pole.
But yeah, so our crew gets the job to basically, firstly, they take the long way there, and then they build a tunnel back, is how that's supposed to work. So you follow them over this year-long space road trip, basically, trying to get to this weird new planet that very few people they know have ever been to. And yeah, it's just a very gentle meander.
And there's sort of like this series of like vignettes from their life.
Yeah.
And so the thing with humans in this setup is that the Earth died. Like, we were in the process of like all killing each other, and then climate change overtook us, and loads of rich people buggered off to Mars with like loads of resources.
Side eyes Elon Musk.
Yeah, basically. And the rest of us poor f***ers had to dismantle the cities and turn them into spaceships, and just like left into the unknown. Like, I don't know where those who walk away from Omelas are going, but they're going somewhere, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and the idea was to design it so they never had to get there. Wherever there was, if there's nowhere to get to, they could keep going, was the idea.
Yeah, and they get intercepted by an alien, a particular one of the alien species who is in part of the Galactic Commons, and they basically get taken in as refugees, and that's how humans become part of this galactic community.
Yeah, and they're called, the ones who were left on the ship, they're the Exodians, and then the ones who are on Mars are Martians.
Or Solans, I think.
Yeah.
Or ones who stayed within the solar system.
We should do a terrible summary. I mean, I was going to go with Space Family Builds a Road.
I mean, that is pretty much, that is it. That is, it's not terrible. That is genuinely what happened.
I was going to go with I too want a hot lizard girlfriend, but...
no, we can't say the L word.
That's true. I too want a hot Andrisk girlfriend.
Yes. There we go. I'm trying to look at what I've got down, and I've the only thing, let's see, that one's a spoiler, I can't say that. The main one I've got is gays in space don't fight anyone this time because soft.
I mean, I feel that's an apt description of this book. Like, it is a very soft hug of a plot. And I don't know, like, I think for me, I really loved the two things that I think I've written down are, one, the world building. I loved the different humans. I loved the interplay between, like you say, you've got the humans who went back on Earth and then, like, were given a load of like wild animals to basically just become hunter-gatherers.
Oh, yeah, the Gaiists.
But because they were like, we don't need technology, but then they're like looked after by all these other aliens.
Yeah, they're basically zoo animals now. It's like the rest of the GC are like, well, we can't let these stupid f***ers die. But
so we'll just put them on the planet, and then you've got the Martians / Solans, who are the humans who live on Mars, and the Exodians, and like kind of that interplay between all the different human the human civilizations, and then also how she did the world building with the aliens, because it was probably, I think, the best written thing with aliens, because at the end of the day they're alien, they're not human, but she presents it in such a way which it makes them human, and because it's shown through Rosemary, who's the main character, we're introduced to her from the start, who's the clerk on this ship, and she has a twist later, but it's shown through her eyes, and so her understanding, I can't be speciesist, I have to like...
But she's quite sheltered, so she's not like grown up. She's grown up on Mars, and where there's just not a lot of non-humans around. There's like occasionally diplomats and stuff, but she's not. And then suddenly she's, because of something that happens in her life, suddenly she's on this crew with a bunch of people who are not human and having to get used to them.
Yeah. She's her background is very much like, so she went to university and sort of studied, I guess, sort of alien...
Yeah, she's got the languages down pat and like a lot of the cultural
anthropology
stuff. Yeah,
so sort of like, modern anthropology of aliens. So she's got the languages, she's got the sort of that cultural context, but she hasn't been exposed to it in real life.
It's all theoretical. She hasn't kind of... The lived experience is lacking, yeah.
Which I really liked, because I think it introduced all the characters individually, and also the way this book is structured I really enjoyed, because it's like each chapter's a self-enclosed little plot point. It doesn't go over multiple chapters, so when I was reading it I felt like I could read a chapter, it refreshes my body and brain and soul because it's just happy, and then I can I'll save another chapter for tomorrow when I have to have a pick me up.
Whereas I speed read this all yesterday.
Yeah, that's fair and valid. I think this is like something like the 10th time maybe that I've read this, because I went through, like I said, I mean, it completely, I don't want to understate this, it's like changed my life, because genuinely completely given up on the genre, and I read this and I was like, oh, you can do it. This is how you can do it. You can do that, you know? And then I bought it for like absolutely everybody I know who's vaguely into sci-fi. You know, I've read most of the other ones that are out, all of this. I forget where I was going with this. I had a point. I love it a lot. There we go. That's my point.
Yeah.
But like it's still, you know, on a 10th, 11th, whatever reread, it's still that, oh, this is a warm hug of a book. You know? This is still, I want to crawl inside this and never leave book, you know?
I'll tell you what I really loved about it, like one particular thing, apart from everything you just said, which is absolutely true, is that it's a sci-fi that presents, like, not a perfect utopia, but an optimistic look of, like, what life might be.
Yeah.
Post-climate change. Because at the moment, in my life, I'm very much like, oh, the world is, like, ending, actually. The world is dying, actually, and things are going to change drastically, and that's horrifying and terrifying, and it's not the life that we were promised when we were growing up. And then so to read this and be like, but there could still be a future afterwards where people are good, and they look after each other, and things are sometimes still hard, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I badly needed that idea, and the book is just suffused with it. So...
Yeah. I really like the way, I feel like everything is very much in perspective. So it's not to say there isn't conflict and there isn't, you know, things don't go wrong, because there absolutely is. I mean, like, they're boarded by pirates at one point. One of their crew members gets arrested for something completely f***ed up that they didn't, you know, it's like, when I say that, I mean, they didn't do anything. Like, it was, you know, so there's really serious f***ed up does happen to people. But at the same time, it's always kind of only the thing itself, you know? There's none of this, like, we've made it worse because there's miscommunication, or it's worse because now we can't afford to live, or it's worse because of all these, like, external pressures that, you know, I feel like a lot, you know, all of the extra ways that people create drama in stuff because of the setup of the world, where, like Eli was saying, it's not a utopia, but they've engineered a future that's where things work well enough that every issue is only itself.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't become part of this massive interweaving web of, like, all the ways your life is under late stage capitalism, you know.
So, like, one example of this is, I'm about to spoil something. I'm about to spoil Rosemary's deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So, her deal is that her dad is Space Elon Musk, and he has just been convicted of doing a whole load of really, really messed up arms dealing, like horrifying biological weapons arms dealing.
And, like, selling to both sides of a civil war. Yeah.
And selling things that we later hear about the effects of the kind of weapons that he's been selling, and they are horrifying. And she had no idea. She's in her early 20s. She had no idea. But obviously she's completely caught up in it, and, like, the paparazzi and the media and everything. And, like, her entire life is just blighted forever by this. So she runs away. She changes her name. She gets a job on board this tunneling ship that goes out on long journeys, and nobody's going to know who she is, whatever. But she can't keep up the ruse. And so she comes clean to one of her crew members. After the news that her father has actually been convicted comes out. She's just like, you know what, actually, I'm bad at lying. I don't want to do this anymore. And I know I'm going to get kicked off the ship, whatever. Like, she's so afraid of the consequences of coming clean, but she does it anyway. And then there aren't any consequences. Like, people are kind of annoyed that she lied, but nobody blames her for, like, the thing that she was afraid of, that, you know, people were going to kick her off the ship because they didn't want the daughter of this arms dealer or whatever, just doesn't happen. Like, it's not even a question. It's just, it sucks that you had to lie, and God, I am sorry that you're going through this trauma. And, like, it's just such a lovely, kind response from all of the characters.
And it wouldn't happen that way in any other book, you know? Like, when the first time I read this, I was genuinely expecting this to be, like, you know, this was it. This was going to be the thing that took over the rest of the book, and that Rosemary was going to have to, like, earn her way back in, or there was going to be, you know, and it just never materialized.
Well, the thing is, that thing that makes me wonder is, what if the book was set on Mars in this world? Because that's what she's expecting. That's how she's been raised.
Yeah,
and I think the Martian culture is far less kind, and people are all we've got, and we've got to look out for each other, than the Exodan fleet is. Yeah. Because it's the rich people who are out for themselves that founded Mars. And
it's, I mean, the first person she tells is Jenks, who, like, has a whole backstory about sort of, you know, how he wouldn't, if people didn't help people, he wouldn't exist, you know? It's what he's got one of those. I mean, I I'm always slightly confused about the exact details of how of Jenks, but like basically his mum was one of those Gaiists we were talking about earlier, and he would have among Gaiists. I think he's
he's a little person.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got the same kind of dwarfism as Peter Dinklage does, I think, going by the description in the book.
Yeah. And like if he and his mum had stayed on with the Gaiists, they would have just let him die. Or possibly actively killed him. Sources are unclear. And so she has to run and get and try and, escape to the orbital station and he would not be there and like be allowed to be like in full control of his body and whatever if it wasn't for the kind of people are all we've got sort of approach. And so the fact that the captain's Exodon as well, I think, and it's a multi-species crew, there's all of this, they have to. For it to work, they have to be the kind of people who are like prepared to be kind and to reach out and to put these things in the correct perspective and the fault exactly where it's due and nowhere else. Otherwise, everything would just, like, they wouldn't work, They wouldn't
survive. They straight up wouldn't, so what something that happens later in the book is there's this one character, and he's one of the first people we're introduced to on the crew, apart from Rosemary, but and he's just an arsehole. I mean, he's also very clearly autistic coded, but on top of that, he is also just unlikable and very Corbin. Brusque, and Corbin. And, people don't like him. He particularly has an antagonistic relationship with the Andrisk pilot, and this is a species that's kind of like reptilian, and has a very different kind of social structure.
Sapient, social structure.
And it comes to pass that he is in a really, really awful situation through no actual fault of his own, despite being a dick. And the only person that can get him out of it by doing him a great kindness and sacrifice is this pilot, Sissix. And she does it. Without question, she doesn't even think about not doing it.
Yeah.
Because they're family.
That whole plot point of spoilers TM, is that they're sort of boarded by, I guess, the auditors.
Space cops.
Or the space cops.
Yeah.
And they're scanning everyone for, genetic abnormalities or genetic things that aren't meant to exist. And they get to Corbin, they scan him, and they just immediately arrest him and take him away. And they're like, why are you taking him? And they say, oh, because he shouldn't exist.
No, they say, what was his crime? And they go, oh, he exists.
Oh, he exists, that's his crime. Yeah. That's his crime is existing. And everyone's like, what the hell's going on? And then the guy who, Dr. Chef, who's the chef on board, but was previously a doctor.
He's also the ship's doctor.
He's also a doctor.
I love Dr. Chef.
He's the best.
He's a member of a species that has 5 or 6 sets of vocal apparatus, and their language is spoken parallelized, and so his real name is just completely unpronounceable by literally anybody else. So he picked a nickname based on his 2 jobs, Dr. Chef.
So it's half his life story as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh my god, I cried so much.
Dr. Shepherd had gone through sort of the blood work again for Corbin, and they basically realised that Corbin was a clone, and that's why that he, quote, is a crime for existing. And the only way to get him out of Space Cop prison is, that the Andriks are the only species that
didn't ban cloning.
That don't have cloning laws, and therefore...
Because it just never occurred to them to do it.
Yeah. So she has to,
become his legal guardian.
It's kind of adopt him almost. She's like his sponsor. He's got refugee status in the GC, and she's got to sponsor him and show him the ropes, and she's got to basically live with him for a year. She's stuck with him for a year.
It was also a very good point that was made about how there was a lot of modern commentary that came out of that saying, oh, he's lived in the GC all his life, yet he's not a member of the GC because of nothing, no fault of his own. Which is, with the Windrush scandal and everything like that, it's very...
Well, I was going to say, it's timely with the fact that right now in the UK, we're having laws going through Parliament about just being able to arbitrarily revoke people's British citizenship because Priti Patel wants to. Very timely, actually.
It's very timely commentary, and I think that's, not only that bit of the book, but there's many bits of the book which I think have this timely commentary behind it where you're thinking, oh, yeah, that's not great, is it?
Well, thinking about that, so the warlike species that's sitting on a load of space lithium, their whole thing is that they believe that everybody has to think the same way. And if you start thinking a different way, you immediately have to break off, form your own orthodoxy, and be at war with everybody else who thinks differently than you.
You can literally just snap mid-conversation and kill somebody. Like, that's normal for them.
Yeah, like, they kill each other all the time, like, wildly violent. And their entire species is just this fractured system of clans and hierarchies that are all at each other's throats constantly over the slightest disagreement. And I'm just like, if that isn't 2022 internet culture, I do not know what is. Like, I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, that's Twitter. You know?
Yeah, it is.
And this book was written in 2014. Like, that, it wasn't such a thing back then, but, you know,
I tell you what, one thing I really like, going back to the idea of family, where I think that cropped up again, I've forgotten the Andrew's name.
Sissix.
That's the one, Sissix. They go to see her family and like how their family structure works, I thought was a really interesting concept, because it is very alien. At the end of the day, she is like an alien, as in not human, but it was also very human. I don't know, I quite like how they had like a feather family, like your chosen family, and then you had your hatch family and your other family, and they all contribute different things to your life, and you move between them in your different stages in life. I don't know, I found that quite an interesting concept, because that is how
like the flexibility of it, and the idea that, like, I think there's a moment where she's explaining it to Rosemary before they get to her home, and she's like, you know, different people bring different things to your life at different times, and that's fine, and you don't have to stay anywhere forever.
Also, like, the person that you love to be physically intimate with in whatever way isn't necessarily the person you want to raise children with, or the same people. Like, these two things don't necessarily correlate, and that's okay, and that you should approach those kind of relationships with intention, and like, that's very much how I think about relationships. You know, in our culture, we tend to associate a lot of things that aren't necessarily intrinsically related. Like, just because I want to kiss someone doesn't mean I want to raise a screaming toddler together, you know?
Yeah.
And so this family system that they have is really interesting in that sense, because it actually seems very healthy. And like, with all of the potential for dysfunction that comes with just being a person. But,
I just thought of, like, this is completely unrelated, but I just thought of something else that made me chuckle when I was reading it, is the fact they had the boring tea and the normal. Was it boring tea and normal?
Happy tea.
Exciting tea, yeah.
And exciting tea was like herbal tea, and boring tea was like your PG tips, standard cup of tea, you know, standard.
No, it's the other way around. Boring tea is so it's to do with whether or not it's caffeinated.
Oh, okay, yeah, other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, so boring tea is like green tea.
Yeah.
And then like exciting tea is just like caffeine.
And they have like anti-coffee called mech, which just makes you a bit like sleepy and happy.
Yeah. And they do have actual coffee, but like you only see that very occasionally, and that was quite fun. And I liked all the details of the world building, you know? And we can talk about like more about the aliens, I like how much effort went into them being genuinely alien, and there being things that just, no matter what you do not translate. I really liked that. And I like how it kind of went around the sort of, you know, there's that joke with Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever, is that, you know, all of the aliens, they have two legs, and if you can't do it with makeup, the alien doesn't happen, kind of thing. Which was like partially a budget thing. But like, I like the fact that some of the aliens have just completely different biology, you know, like, and that means that there's some fundamental differences that you can't get round. Like the fact that Aelwans have to have talk boxes, they have to have technology in order to communicate with people who speak, because their language is entirely like based on the color changes in their face.
Yeah.
And they don't have ears, you know?
Where I've seen that before is in Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is the second in his series about what if there were people that were based on animals from Earth, but that weren't apes, essentially. If humans are what happens when you do sentience to an ape, what happens if we do sentience to spiders, or in the second installation, octopuses. And their communication between each other is based on a bunch of, like, you know, their tentacles moving and colours changing across their skin.
Yeah.
And neither of those are audible.
Or there's a lot of like hand signals.
Yeah. And it's the same with the spiders, actually. Like, sound waves don't mean a lot to them, you know? Certainly not sound waves through the air. With the spiders, it's to do with vibrations on, like, web and floor that they make with their legs. And so just these completely like things that you would just take for granted as like, oh, of course audible sound is a way of communicating. It's just not true.
Yeah. Or like, I think it's Hermagians that basically can only get around in like, they have little like carriages personal carriages that they ride in because they don't have legs. And like on their planet, I think they just float around, you know, it's like all like underwater or like in, you know, it's so they don't need legs. So, you know, one of the things I really love about this is that like, you can see the impact that biology has on society and vice versa without it being deterministic. Yeah. Like she's clearly really thought about the relationship between, biological diversity and like how that would affect how you think about things, or how that would think about affect how you relate to other people, or how it would, like all of the ways in which technology like is used to enhance or assist with interspecies communication and travel and like sci-fi where it's like, oh, we're going to be really joyless about the fucking sci-fi. It's all hard science sci-fi. And here it's like, actually, soft science is cool and I'm going to take it really seriously. Yeah. And you are going to get that while also it's still being incredibly fun and interesting and vibrant.
I'll tell you which other series does, to drop a different sci-fi series is Ian M. Banks', actually it's not a series, it's a standalone, The Algebraist, but there are a lot of aliens in there that are like, and it has the same kind of thing of like, there's a galactic federation and you've got delegates from different, like 4 big species and stuff. And they also have the thing of like some species that were evolved in like a water world have to have these little pods that they go around in. And, you know, actually what's inside there is this weird little fragile jellyfish thing. But because we've got the pods, they seem very intimidating. Like these big pods, and sort of like exploring what that does for this image of a species. It's a bit like the Dalek inside the Dalek is this pathetic like little tentacly thing. Yeah. And so I feel like there is a tradition of that in sci-fi, but maybe I've just been very lucky that I've happened to read a lot of people who've done it well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's you know, it's big things and it's little things. Like, one of the things I really like is that is a running, not a joke exactly, but like a running theme throughout the book that everybody in the GC finds Ailwans attractive, which is the people that communicate with color, and they're like, described mostly as shiny. They're like very shimmery and scaled and with like big eyes, and everybody in the GC basically agrees that they're like super attractive. And then one of the very first things we hear, one of the Teremi cards, so one of the people, the angry people that they're going to like,
the Twitter brainwhat people,
yes, the Twitter brainwhat people. One of the very first things we hear him think is how much he hates the way the Ailwans look and how ugly he thinks Ailwans are, and you kind of go, oh shit. Like, it was a really little thing, but your brain is already like primed to be like, oh, we don't, you know, they are so far beyond our understanding. And then to have that just be a little detail that kind of like fleshed that out, I thought was really cool.
Yeah. It's like the equivalent of you meet someone and they go, yeah, no, Dev Patel isn't that attractive. And you just go, okay, you are a fundamental different species to me.
Yeah, no, very much so.
I think that the book contains like loads and loads of like sci-fi aspects. You know, you've got your space travel, AI, cloning issues, you know, differences between sapients and non-sapients and things like that. And I thought it dealt with them all in their self-enclosed chapters like really well. Like with the AI, I think it is an interesting concept of the fact that the shipboard computer has become sentient, because I assume it's just like machine learning, but it's learning by itself, like that. I
mean, it's kind of implied that like most of them, so there's like different levels of AI that are available, and the high level ones are people by the way that we would understand it, but they're not treated that way by the Galactic Commons. Is the impression I got. So it's not unusual necessarily that she is the way that she is.
But she's clearly like Lovey. So Lovelace is like the base computer program. And then Lovey is sort of this personality that's grown out of that base program. And so when she, spoiler, has to be reset due to the attack, because she hasn't got access to all that.
Which we haven't mentioned yet and is a big spoiler, but like...
because she doesn't have access to her files. And like... And she doesn't have access to all of her files. So she only has like the memory bank of Jenks and that's it. And she doesn't know who the rest of the people are because she doesn't have access to those files. And so when they reset, it's either she's going to see the corrupted files and like fix it or not. And in this case, she doesn't. And it's like a whole different personality because she hasn't got those learned experiences.
Well, she's been reset to standard. She's been reset to blank slate.
Reset. Yeah.
Which I think is, that is what happens. But I don't think that makes the Lovelace that wakes up not a sapient person.
No,
I think
sapient.
It just means
like
that she's a different person.
A different person. Like it's kind of those learned experiences. Like, you know, as a human, you have learned experiences and you learn from them and you grow. And if you went back in time and chose something different, you'd probably end up a different personality because of the impact of those choices on your life and what you learn, la-di-da-di-da. So I thought, it was a really interesting point. Rather than just sort of saying she's stock reset to nothing, it's stock reset to a different personality, and that will branch off in a different way, which I thought was quite a nice.
Which is the
nice
second
point.
book. The second book is basically following her, like
is following Lovelace 2, sort of 2.0.
Excite.
But okay, so I'm gonna like spoil that plot line a bit more. So like Lovey 1.0 is in love with Jenks, who's the main like mechanical technician aboard the Wayfarer.
No, he's the comp tech. He's like the software tech, computer tech.
Yeah.
And then
no, you're right. Sorry,
Kizzy is the
Kizzy's
mech tech.
Mech tech, yeah. And they're in love, and one of their kind of ongoing things throughout the book is trying to work out whether they want to give Lovey a human-esque
form
body.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing that they could technically do. And like by the end of it, they've kind of they bought the kit, and then they were like, actually, do you know what? I don't think we want to do this. Like, she was very much like, I would only be doing it for you. Like, I like being a ship, and I think I'd like being a person, but I don't need to change for like that to work, you know? Which I thought, again, that was a really nice, it was something where like in any other book, that would be a massive drama about, you know, her needing to have a body to have a real relationship, or, you know, there would just be a lot more like high drama around those choices than there is. And it's very much like,
so
here
refreshing.
are two people communicating about what they need and want in a, like, just a very straightforward and calm way. And I really dig that. But yeah, anyway, sorry, where I was going with this was that, so they have the body and they've decided not to use it. And then this new Lovelace wakes up, and Pepper, who's a friend of the crew who knows about AI, who was there to try and help fix Lovey, is like, look, I want to give you options here. You can stay on this ship, and I think they'll be good to you. They're good people. But Jenks has just lost the love of his life, who sounds exactly like you, and that might be an uncomfortable experience for both of you. We have a body here. Would you like to maybe take that, and you can come with me, and I'll get you set up as a person with legs and shit. And that's the whole second book is this Lovelace learning how to use a robot body that's kind of smaller than a spaceship, and it's so good. You guys are gonna love it so much. But anyway, yeah, it's good. It's a good time. I tell you what, the other thing I like about this is that it kind of makes it clear that it's another way in which this isn't a utopia, right? They don't have their shit sorted out yet, because so many AI are clearly people, but they're not treated that way, and they're not legally that way. And, you know, clones aren't treated like they're legal people with rights. And, you know, there's all this extra stuff that, like, we're talking about now, that's ethical issues now. And they're like, actually, maybe we won't have solved it, but people will still be trying, you know?
Yeah.
And I really like that, you know, it's an unfinished utopia. You know, there's still things to imagine, there's still things to improve and change, and I really like that. But yeah, I was going to say, did anybody have... I was thinking favourite, like, interspecies relationship moment, because there's so much good, like, stuff that comes out of that.
I mean, for me, I guess, like, Dr. Chef's talk with Rosemary after it's... So Dr. Chef is a member of the species called the Grum, and what happened to them was very much like the humans. They were all killing each other. And they were using some of the really horrific, like, weapons that Rosemary's father ended up doing an arms dealing of.
I don't think it's the same thing, but I think it's, like, very similar.
Oh, no, he was using gene targeting weapons. Like, that was part of it.
Yeah, I'm just saying he's not the one that sold them to them.
No, but it's the same technology. So we get to hear about exactly what it is, that the kind of weapons that he sold are designed to do. And it's pretty horrific. And basically this species killed itself out. Just wars upon wars, and, you know, all of them just kind of like been fighting so long that we've kind of forgotten what we're fighting for, kind of thing. And there's only like 300 of the Grum left. And they've all kind of quietly decided not to have kids because, you know, they don't, like, maybe some of them are, but the species is done, basically. So Dr. Chef kind of sits down with Rosemary after the truth comes out about who Rosemary's dad is and, like, why she's even with this crew in the first place, and basically says, like, yeah, it's really hard trying to figure out who you are in the absence of a conflict you inherited, and knowing, like, how much of sort of, if you thought that your dad would never do such a thing, and you were wrong. What else were you wrong about? Like, yes, that is hard and it's scary, and I'm sorry that you're going through it, but also, you know, you're trying to do something different, and that's enough. And, like, that's a conversation that there's nothing sci-fi about that. The setting is sci-fi, but it's such a real, like a conversation you might have with a close friend or a therapist or something. Talking about very real, complicated, difficult emotions. Yeah. And I would die for Dr. Chef. Dr. Chef is just like, I love him.
Pretty much.
I want to be him.
I mean, the other thing I really like about that conversation is I feel like, okay, I just want to preface this with, like, I am not an eco-fascist. I don't think humans should just lie down and stop trying. But I did think it was a very interesting perspective on the extinction of the species, that they just decided not to. You know, they'd been around so long, and they were like, actually, we've had enough. Our time is over. And that doesn't mean we're gonna, you know, try and kill us off any faster or whatever. We're just gonna quietly let this go. And that's okay. And I just found that a really interesting perspective to have on it, particularly set against the Exodans doing absolutely everything they can to, like, engineer themselves into, or not themselves, but engineer their society into a shape that could keep going despite everything. I don't know, it was interesting to me. I liked it. I don't really have any deep thoughts on it apart from that, but I think it's quite rare to see the idea that maybe people would just be like, actually, it's time, you know? And that could be like a quiet, sad thing, but not an epic devastation of, I don't know, it's interesting. I think you have to read it. I think it's one of those things I'm trying to express very badly what the book actually says, and you should just read the book.
I think if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, I like, you know, if you're maybe even not a big fan of sci-fi, like, I don't think that matters. It really doesn't matter. It, like you say, it's set in a sci-fi scenery, but that doesn't mean it's, like you say, it's not like a hardcore, nitty-gritty sci-fi, need a PhD in theoretical physics to understand it. It's not
Which,
that
like,
at
I'm
all.
so grateful for, because I hate that.
Oh, no,
like, as soon as there's, like, actual time travel, I'm just like, I hate you, and I have to leave.
And it's kind of like, and it's also, sometimes I find those books maybe a bit, like, not patronising, but it's like, oh, well, if you're not on my level of scientific understanding, you can't understand this book, this book is nothing like that. It's a really joyous, comforting, easy read.
And, like, it all hangs together within its own rules as well. This isn't to say that it's, like, sloppy. You know, it's all, like, you can tell how much thought has gone into it, and it's just such a well-constructed, like, textured world. You know? I was going to say that, I was going to ask you guys, actually, what was your favourite, like, tiny world-building moment? Like, just the little things, because there's so many, like, joyous, weird little things in this book that make me so happy.
I liked the modders as this community of people who,
baby!
this community of people who, like, alter their own bodies with, like, parts, or, like, a lot of people will also have tattoos, and sort of they do it, like, almost for the joy of it, because they want their body to match how they feel they ought to be. And I was like, that's a trans narrative. And they all pick names for themselves, which I love. Like, they're called things like Bear and Nib, and it's just like, I love it. And there's this one moment where there are these two brothers, Bear and Nib, and they have this 16-year-old sister who they're basically raising. And she's just like, oh, I really want to get implants. I want to get get a cool ocular implant like my brother has. And the brother has one because he shot his own eye out earlier, like, in the past.
Yeah.
He didn't get it just for shits and giggles. But, and they basically say, like, look, you don't get them just because they're cool. You get them because, like, they're an expression of yourself, and you need to know what it is that you're getting into when you get one, and you need to be safe.
Like, your neurochemistry isn't fixed yet because you're 16. Wait till you're like 25 and the neuroplasticity has stopped like kicking your ass. And
exactly, and like that as a representation of the kind of communities, like the tattoo artists community, and you know, like responsible tattoo artists are not encouraging teenagers to get whatever like tattooed on them.
And they won't tattoo drunk people, and you know, all of this stuff.
And like I love that it was such a sort of like because I very much feel like I am part of those communities. Like, I have tattoos, and I really like, you know, the idea that you can like, you know, I've had top surgery, like I have a custom bespoke tailored body that I like, and it's with the models, it was like they do it because they own their bodies and they're making their own bodies a home for themselves. And like that's absolutely how I approached the relationship with my body, and so I loved that it was quite a sensitive portrayal of those communities, or at least the more like the current analogues we have to that community.
Oh man, I'm gonna sound really shallow now when I say I like the pixel plants.
I also love the pixel plants.
I wish I could have those as well.
It sounds like a great addition when you don't have the space for like real plants, and you'd be like, I can have the pixel plants like everyone.
Also, I just love the fact that it bullies you into like having a drink.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, you haven't looked up from your paperwork in like 3 hours. Maybe you should.
You know there were like apps you can download on your phone to do that for you, right?
My literal like out of work programming project this year is to make an app that bullies me into remembering people's birthdays on time.
I mean, this is why I've had to like add everything onto my phone as like recurring events, because it's the only way I remember like any sort of important information. But like, God, something that can tell me to stop looking at my screen during the working day, because
I need something to tell me that I'm cold. I don't notice, and then I feel really ill. It's like hours, and I've been sitting in one position, freezing to death, and I'm like, why do I feel so gross? And it's like, babe, you're wearing like no layers, and it's winter, and you've frozen your butt to the ground. Like, this is I should know that, but it's like 4 hours, and I'm like, maybe I should put a jumper on. You idiot!
I had to put a thermometer in my room to stop like overheating. I mean, I know it's probably the opposite problem, but like I wrap myself up in a blanket.
I don't have the overheat, because like as soon as I'm like a degree above where I like my natural born tendency, I am like the angriest person alive, and I know instantly, and I have to fix it. But the cold, I'm like Sissix. If it's cold, I'm just like, what if I just stayed in one position and didn't notice that there were things I could do?
Just gradually getting slower and slower. Like, you're just getting more and more sluggish, and you don't actually notice it.
Yeah. I get weird headaches, and my bones start aching, and all of this crap, and it's like, honey, you know what this is. Do something about it.
Wrap yourself in a blanket. But it's like, I mean, to be honest, I feel like a segue into how this book wraps you in a blanket of comfort and joy. What's like your, I say favourite bit, but who, I don't want to go straight in with like, who would you want to punch? Who do we want to give a hug first? Let's go with that.
Dr. Chef.
Yeah.
He gives the best hugs. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know what? I feel like Pei could also use a few hugs.
Yeah, probably.
Like, so Ashby the captain, he has a girlfriend who's an Aelwan, and there's this like massive interspecies taboo about, like, Aelwans are pretty great about everything except sleeping with other species.
Yeah.
So there's all this like secrecy around their relationship and all this tension, and like at one point she comes aboard the ship because she needs help, and she and her crew need help, and like Ashby can't like hug her or like, you know, just give her the comfort that she needs because like they can't let on that they're in a relationship, and it just seems like she's having a really tough time and she could use more hugs.
Yeah. And, like, all of Ashby's crew know about the relationship. They haven't, like, met her. But when she hails them, the only person who is around to receive the call is Kizzy, who is this just, like, insanely ADHD mechanical technician genius. Anyway, and she's just like, oh, yeah, we can let you board, you know. And then the penny drops and she goes, wait, are you Pei? Are you know, because her full, Pei's full name is, like, Gape Tem something. And she's and Kizzy, like, the penny drops and she goes, oh my god, like, yes, please be welcome. Like, and it's just like all of Ashby's crew is so ready to like be her friend and go to bat for her because they know how important she is to him. And it's just so sweet. Like, it's lovely.
Yeah.
I bet Sissix would give good hugs as well, though.
I mean, on that theme, I'm gonna say I think it's against the ethos of this book to pick somebody that we would fight.
Yeah.
Because that's very much not the vibe of this.
Can we, like, poke with a stick, slap with the wet fish of reality?
I mean, I tell you what, I wouldn't even fight Corbyn.
No.
Like, I've got to say, like, I really dig the... Oh, so part of his sort of development arc is that, like, he finds out he's a clone, and specifically he's a clone of his dad, who, by all accounts, was, like, a terrible dad.
Yeah.
And who, like, never learnt to, like, get on with people, and, like, part of his response to that character flaw was to clone himself a kid and then be terrible at being a parent.
Well, he also tragically lost his wife and unborn child. And then he was like, oh, I do want a child, actually.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. That was, I'm being unfair to Corbyn's dad here, but, like,
yeah.
I'm saying as a coping mechanism for that, he was like, I will clone myself and then parent it badly.
But, like, he was a bad dad for reasons unrelated to the autism, you know?
Yeah, and, like, he's never learned, like, he never basically, apart from with his wife, like, tried to stretch out and do the, like, being with people thing. And I love that where Corbyn takes the response to, oh God, I am just a copy of this man that I don't like very much. Oh, maybe I'm going to end up like him. And I love that instead of his spite-driven response to that is, what if I, like, spent more time with the crew and, like, asked them about their lives? I love that that's what he chooses to do with it. He's like,
what if I skilled up on, like, social skills?
What's the way I can make myself the least like my dad? And it's to take these really tiny baby steps into, like, developing relationships with the people he lives with. And I love that for him.
Because I don't think we can really do, like, who would be the human in the Muppets adaptation, because, I mean, would that...
Yeah.
Would that work?
I feel like there's no good way to do that. There's no good way to do that, unless it is to make all the humans Muppets.
There is swearing in this as well, so it's not like we can ask who gets the word, because they all do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think everyone gets at least one F-bomb, because that's legit. I mean, I think it just... it's such a fun time. I just want to, like, like you said, just, like, throw this at everyone I know and just be like, read it.
Yeah.
Read it and enjoy it, and then pass it on to someone else and make them read it.
I'm so grateful that there are so many sequels now, because it does mean that the warm hug does not have to end.
Yeah.
Because every single other book I've read in the sequence is the same level.
But the thing about the sequels is they don't follow the same people. So it's not like you are repeatedly dragging the same characters back into trauma. It's like the crew of this ship, I think pretty much they don't really come up again.
No.
And that's just because they're just off living their lives and, like, making it work. And you get to see other bits of this universe in the same kind of slice of life of, like, so what is this world like? What is it like to be a person on the Exodus fleet, living on Mars? What is it like to be, this, that, the other?
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, I really love Records of a Spaceborne Few, which is the one that's set in the Exodus fleet, specifically because I feel like one of the ways that sci-fi let me down, and I think it's still letting us down in a lot of mainstream senses, like that thing about how new Star Treks keep getting set further and further back in the timeline because we can't imagine a better future anymore.
Yeah.
Thing. And the Exodus fleet, the whole point of the Exodus fleet is we have to be self-sufficient and take care of each other and be kind and we have to make that happen for as long as humanly possible, And part of that means taking responsibility for our communities and living with this really sincere intentionality about how things work. And the whole of Records of a Spaceborne Few is like, actually, I am going to do the work to imagine a better future. Come with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. What do we think our darling dear Gothmog would give this book?
Ooh. I mean, the spaceship needs a cat. That's what the spaceship is missing, right?
It definitely needs a cat. She'd be the cat of that spaceship. She'd have a great time.
Mm-hmm. Which of the crew do we think are cat people?
Sissix. Because I love her.
See, I think I could go either way on Sissix. I feel like Sissix would either think they're adorable or would find them just so annoying.
Yeah.
Like, imagine cat hair when you're molting.
Yeah,
but also imagine you are a cold-blooded creature and a cat comes to sit on you.
This is what I mean about going either way.
Yeah. But then again, like, if the integrity of the cat rating, backstabbing, crime, crafty shenanigans.
Ooh, there's not a lot of backstabbing except by one Twitter brainwat person.
Yeah. There is crime.
The thing is,
well,
there is
crime. There's space cops.
Yeah.
But that's a bit of a tenuous link.
It's very gays in space do crime in the sense of it's very much like everybody on the crew is very aware that legal does not moral make.
Yeah.
You know? And like Kizzy and Jenks are both very like clued into like a lot of subcultures that are like where a lot of the stuff is technically illegal or quite fringe, but it's not immoral, you know? And so I feel like in that general vibe, I think Gothmog would have a good time there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do we think out of 10? What do you think?
The thing is, I want to give it a really good rating. I want to give it a really high rating because I adore it.
But I don't know that she would, because here's the thing.
We can separate our rating and her rating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we've been saying this book is like a big warm hug. Gothmog traditionally does not really go for big warm hugs. If you try and give her a big warm hug, she will scrabble at you and ask to be let down.
That's true. But I would argue that the kind of like
Vibes.
household that she lives in is very much queer found family, making it good in a big scary world kind of thing. And I think she already kind of lives in as close to that as she's gonna get.
Well, I mean, when I was reading the thing about like the Andrisks having these three families, like the family that you're hatched into, the family that you choose when you're young, like your feather family, and then the family that you choose to raise hatchlings with, your house family. I was like, oh yeah, this is I have a feather family. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good time.
It's a good time. I mean, even if she gives this a low rating, I would give this like 15 out of 10. I love this book. It was so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we've done that before, right? Like, it's not just because we love the book doesn't mean the cat would love the book. She's got very specific tastes.
No, we have to keep integrity the cat rating. I think she'd probably give it like a 4.
That's where I was thinking.
Yeah, see, I feel like perfect ambivalence is where she's at with it. You know, like she'd fit in this world very well, but that doesn't mean she's like enthusiastic about any of it.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. She's like she's happy and content living there, but has no other thoughts.
No other opinions.
Yeah. Oh, guys,
there.
What else have you been reading / consuming / doing in this plane of existence?
Crafting projects. That's an important part of our
crafting projects.
I'm knitting a pair of socks. I'm very excited about it.
I mean, I'm doing a cross stitch and continuing to listen to Jonathan Strange and Miss Cinderella, which Em recommended to me ages ago, like literally.
We were going to do it last season, then we just dropped it because it was very long and we were all very tired.
Yeah, I've still got like 17 hours to go on it.
Oh my gosh.
It's like the audiobook is it's a really good audiobook, and it's great if you're like the kind of person who has like a vegetable patch or like, you know, fruit or whatever during lockdown, because I've got all the raspberries now, and I'm pretty sure it's because this book has just helped me like chill whilst tending to the raspberries, and I can confirm it made good jam, so that's what I did.
I watched the new Matrix film.
Oh,
Matrix 4 Resurrections.
Is it good?
I loved it. I went into it thinking I'm not going to spoil anything with what I'm about to say. I went into it thinking, like, being prepared to give it a lot of grace and forgive a lot of stuff, because I love the Wachowskis. Oh, I think this one is only Lana Wachowski's doing it. But anyway, I love the Wachowski sisters. I really like The Matrix. I went into it thinking, like, you know, I could forgive a lot for it being the 4th Matrix film. I did not have to. It was just so good. There's a character in it called Bugs, who is just like chef's kiss. Oh my god, I love her. I love everything about her. There were like, it made sense as a 4th movie. There were some things I didn't like about it, but it was a movie that deserved to exist, unlike the latest iteration of like Marvel schlock, you know? So that was refreshing. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, that's good. Oh, yay. I do want to watch that at some point. But yeah, I guess we should probably wrap up now. I've just noticed the time, guys.
No, I want to yell about the queer romance novel that consumed my life. How could you?
I mean, we've got 6 minutes. Go on. Go on.
Okay,
go.
So,
go.
Yes, yesterday I was like, I needed a self-care afternoon. I watched Whisper of the Heart again, curled up on my beanbag chair, and then I was like, I've got an evening left of self-care Saturday. What shall I do? And I bought myself a new KJ Charles. I got The Gentle Art of Fortune Hunting, and it's so good. It's so good. Seriously, guys, we should do a KJ Charles on this podcast at some point, because I think you both will love them. But yeah, just like exactly what I needed. Just very soft, good, like excellent character work. Regency, queer romance. Just excellent. Also, more relevantly, maybe to as relevantly to you guys and slightly more to the podcast maybe, I've been reading Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley, which is like a biography of Jane Austen that kind of covers a lot of like background context.
Okay.
Which I'm finding really interesting because I've read a bunch of fiction set in that time period and I know absolutely nothing about the history.
Oh, okay.
I know, like, Napoleonic Wars, sort of, and that's it.
I know Napoleonic Wars if there were dragons.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it turns out that, like, I live about an hour and a half away from where she lived, and so I just did a road trip over lockdown, was like,
oh, nice!
I want to go see that, and it's a tiny house. It's a great house. Fun fact, if you go and visit the little village where it is in Chawton, you can also go up the road to the big Chawton house where her brother lives, which has a load of feminist literature. It's got the biggest feminist literature library, I think, is either in the UK or the world. Like, it's quite... so they all like renovated it and they like put all this literature in it, and you can go and like take books out and stuff, and if you like request it, it's quite cool.
That's really cool.
It is a fun time. It has a great tea shop as well. So just saying, if anyone's
always
like a
good.
road trip,
Always
like
good.
You know, in the sort of Hampshire.
This is how I rate national attractions: is like, how good are the scones? How good is the cream tea? This is important.
Do they do a good sticky toffee pudding? You know.
Or, so I did go to the pub there,
good.
and they did do a good sticky toffee pudding, because you know me,
Nice.
I can never not have a sticky toffee pudding. And all the thing is, I'm now remembering, like, this is a complete, like, non-book related, and I'm sorry, but it just, every time I see sticky toffee pudding, I went to this pub, and it was in London with a friend, and then there was like, these tourists, and they were trying to, the waiter was trying to explain what a sticky toffee pudding was and why it brought this waiter so much joy. And the tourists were like so confused by the concept. I was like, no, sticky toffee pudding is the thing you go for. If you see it on a menu, if you're visiting the UK and you're a tourist and you see sticky toffee pudding, have it. Just it's
This
the
is
best.
not the moment to admit that I don't like sticky toffee pudding, is it?
Always a safe bet. Well, yeah, I mean, if the sticky toffee pudding in a place is bad, you know that everything else on the menu has got to be bad, so at least you didn't make...
Yeah,
you
like
know.
you've got to go through the
That's
main
cool,
course.
yeah.
If that's good and you have a sticky toffee pudding, you know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Sticky toffee pudding connoisseuring at the end of the episode.
Look forward to our new podcast where we go around and tour pubs around the country and rate them on their sticky toffee pudding.
While we
Hey,
still
we
can't
still
leave
need
the country.
wildcard episodes. We should.
Yeah.
Yes, wildcard episode. We'll go around rating sticky toffee puddings.
Our
But,
definitive ranking of the pubs in our cities, yeah.
yes. But yeah, I guess we do need to wrap up properly.
Yes.
But yeah, next time we are going to chat about Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, which me as a Sanderson fangirl, I am very excited about, and I'm kind of looking forward to see what you guys think of it.
Well, I'm excited because the copy I bought from Biblio, I've got it secondhand, is like an ex-library copy, so it's got the plastic cover and it's got the stamps in the front, and I'm just like,
It's cute.
Nice.
It's good. But yeah, remember to follow us on your podcast platform so you never miss an episode, and give us a like or a review if you enjoyed this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. Remember, you can connect with us on our socials. They're all linked below, and you can contact us on our website. Yeah, so that's everything. Yeah, say hello, send us a message, and recommend us some books to read. Big virtual hugs, and we'll see you next time. Bye!